Welcome to the Real Estate Syndication Show. Whether you are a seasoned investor or building a new real estate business, this is the show for you. Whitney Sewell talks to top experts in the business. Our goal is to help you master real estate syndication. And now your host, Whitney Sewell.
This is your daily real estate syndication show. I'm your host, Whitney Sewell. Today, our guest is Josh Koth. Thanks for being on the show, Josh.
Appreciate it, Whitney. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Josh and Jack Haas, on their journey towards financial freedom using the power of real estate through the House Dudes podcast is where they'd like for you to follow them. So House Dudes podcast, they share their experiences as they acquire rental properties, build net worth, and work towards financial freedom. They are focused on creating wealth through conventional and creative real estate investing while improving financial education. And they have made investing work in a market that most people do not look to invest. And Josh explained that even people that live there do not think it's possible to make it happen and work in this market. And I'm looking forward to hearing Josh explain about that and how he and Jack have created a rental business there and made it work when others thought it couldn't be done. So Josh, welcome to the show and look forward to hearing about that. Tell the listeners a little more about what you do in real estate and then I want to talk about this market.
Yeah. So we've, Jack and I both came from the corporate IT world, and I happened to be let go one day and was faced with kind of a crossroads of, do I continue down the corporate path? And as I was getting headhunted and recruited by tech recruiters to take another 9-to-5 cubicle position, do I do that? Or do I take this leap and start investing in real estate? I had read, Rich Dad, Poor Dad and a bunch of Robert Kiyosaki material and had really drank the Kool-Aid as far as real estate being my path that I wanted to pursue. And I decided to go for it. I said, I can always get a tech job if it all fails. And so I bought my first property 3 months later. And didn't know what I was doing, didn't know anything, but I guess I was naive enough to just forge ahead and enthusiastic enough to just forge ahead. And it was kind of like you mentioned, I live in Fargo, North Dakota, so it's not a market that ever shows up on, the best rental markets in the country or places to invest, things like that. And even speaking with people that had been in real estate for a long time, our market had kind of peaked, and we don't really have high peaks and valleys here. It's kind of slow and steady, but it was a really hot market at the time, 3.5 years ago. And I just decided what I needed to offer on a property to make money and offered that and ignored pretty much all other factors. And I started getting properties. And, that was kind of a good lesson there, because the gentleman, especially, that was telling me, I don't know how you're doing this in this market, he was sort of negotiating against himself and just saying, well, I'm not going to bother to offer because this will never get accepted. And I was naive or, uneducated enough, but enthusiastic enough. I would just submit the offers anyways. And, 1 out of 25 or 30 would get accepted. And once you realize that, then it's just a matter of how quickly can I write the first 25 so I know the next one's going to be a yes. And if you knew that 1 out of every 30 was going to get accepted, you'd be writing offers like crazy. So that was what I did right off the MLS. Even I had no concept of approaching people off market and trying to find off market deals, which I now know is the source of the deepest discounts. But I just started buying off the MLS, and in spite of the market conditions, which were tight at the time, and started accumulating properties, and buy and hold being the ultimate goal. So that's kind of what we got going.
Yeah. So tell me though, or elaborate a little more on why everyone else thought that this market wouldn't work.
Because things were selling quickly, the days on market were really short. Prices had really peaked, and that was their experience, so a nice property would sell almost instantly. And, I was of course targeting properties that needed work, that were more tore up, and those would sometimes sit, but even those would sometimes sell, but it was just a numbers game. You just have to not talk yourself out of writing the offer. And this is what I found is a lot of investors do the work. They figure, here's what I need to purchase this property at, but then they talk themselves out of actually submitting the offer. They just say, well, that'll never get accepted. So they don't take that final step of actually writing the offer, even though you think there's no chance. A crucial step is to just write the offer anyways. And that's scary at first because, you think I'm writing all these offers, what happens if they get accepted? Well, once you realize that most of them are going to get rejected anyways, it kind of takes that fear away, and then you just start submitting. And then if you do get one accepted, then you can, okay, now let's figure out what to do from here. But don't be too afraid or scared to move forward regardless of that fear.
I like that. And you were talking about, offering, if you knew how many offers it's going to take to get one accepted, well, then how fast can we write offers? Right. Mm-hmm. So it's just that process and it's the numbers game side of it. But I'd like to go back a little bit to that time when you decided to leave your JOB. You have the,
that decision was made for me.
Yeah. Okay. It was.
Yeah. We got laid. My whole team was laid off. So that was a little bit easier than, actually quitting outright, but I was getting recruited for other positions. So I had a decision to make. It was one of those crossroads moments.
Okay. So, So tell me about like the first week or two after that and, how you moved quickly into real estate to make it happen and, and support yourself.
I luckily have always had multiple income streams, even while I was working full time. In IT, I had a photography studio. I also play in a band. I did a few other things. So I wasn't completely 100% dependent on, the man. And I definitely don't ever want to be in that position where I'm dependent on one employer or corporation for my well-being. So I always had that sort of in me. But actually what it looked like was I said, well, I better start acquiring property. So I started just combing the MLS and calling. I mean, I literally went on Zillow, started looking at properties, sorting by price, start at the lowest ones, and just called whoever agent populated on. I didn't even really have a relationship with an agent or anything. I just literally started calling whatever agent we pre-populated in the Zillow ad and just start going and looking at properties and making offers.
So were you all at that time using any investor money or your own capital?
Just my own capital. And I did, one thing I did do also was go on the recommendation of another investor and agent in town was to go talk to a lender and at least set up a relationship where I knew if and I didn't really also realize the power of buying with cash either at the time. So I was just really getting started, but I knew, okay, I think my first property I bought was about $80,000. So I knew if I could come up with 20% of that, so really 16,000 is what really all I needed to get started. So I just took that on my own reserves.
Nice. Okay. So,
Yeah.
but now you all are raising money for new deals. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep,
So I'd love to hear about that process and like when you first started, raising money and how you built the credibility, for you and your team.
Yeah. So I quickly realized that if I had so much money available to me of my own and I purchased a property and, that was 20% down, that was 16,000. Then if I bought another property, that was going to be another 10 to 20,000. I was eventually, after a few properties, I was going to be out of money and not able to continue acquiring properties. So that raised a problem where how do I do this? Right. So what I did realize is I went and talked to my lender and I said, if I was to scrape up enough money to buy a property and already with cash and already owned it, I came to you, would you be able to put a mortgage on it? He said, oh yeah, that's just a cash out refi. We can do that. So then the light bulb went off that if I was able to purchase with cash, that makes my offer that much more enticing for the seller. So it's a double whammy, as far as benefits to us as investors. So you just have one pool of capital, purchase the property, and then go to this lender and do a cash out refi as quickly as I could. And, it's important to have good relationships with local lenders. So you can do these types of things. Hopefully you want to be talking to people that can actually make the decisions. So you're able to extract the money. And if you buy it cheap enough, we can do what's called a unicorn, or get infinite returns by extracting all the money used to acquire the property and then just go buy another one with that. So really then I could buy them almost as fast as I could find them, because we just buy with cash, go to the bank, extract, put a mortgage on it, extract that money back out and go buy another one. So we could really buy one a month with every pool of capital that we had that was large enough to purchase one property. So then the next logical step beyond that was to, okay, if we can double that pool of income or of cash, then we could buy 2 a month. So that's when we started. And also, as we networked and became more embedded in the local market, we ran across lots of people that had more money than time. A few people, I shouldn't say lots, but most people have more time than money. That's the people that are out grinding and driving for dollars and doing bandit signs and handmade and direct mail and everything like that. But there is people that earn high incomes that would like to put their money to work, and participate passively in real estate. So we made that an option for people. And, there's all kinds of legal things. We had to get lawyers involved and make sure we had all the documents drawn up correctly and that we were doing it properly. Read a few books. There's one by Susan Lassiter Lyons called Getting the Money. I think we read that, and just a lot of research to make sure we're doing everything above board. But ultimately, it's really just about building the relationships with the people. And that was what really led to the ability to utilize their funds.
Okay, so it was like you mentioned it. It's all about building the relationship with those people,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't agree more. But tell me what that looked like for you all, and how you did that, how you met them, and how you continued to build and grow that relationship.
Well, I remember the first time we ever used anyone's money was we had an opportunity to purchase a property, but all our funds were tied up at the moment, and we had just bought a property on terms from a gentleman, and I knew he was pretty well off, and I just kind of mentioned to him, hey, if would you be able to let us use your money for a while? And if so, I'll give you X amount of return. And just because I thought, well, we're going to miss out on this property if I don't ask him. And he said, oh, sure, why not? So, we drew up all the papers and we just had a good relationship because all the rapport we had built doing the seller finance deal with him. We had built that trust and credibility. And that was the first time that it worked. And I actually then started to believe that it was possible. And that's, of course, very important to have the mindset, to believe that it is possible and getting one under your belt, what made that seem a lot more doable. So once we realized it was, then it's just a question of, it's almost like dating, right? You really have to make sure you don't appear desperate, so you have to, it's almost, like you're presenting an opportunity to them. And really that is the case. I mean, because what you realize when you talk to a lot of investors is money is a lot easier to find than a really deeply discounted deal. So once you put that together, you realize that if you're the one that possesses the deal that's available at a deep discount and there's lots of profit to be made, the money will follow because that is, the money is abundant. And it doesn't seem like that when you're starting out. It seems like houses are everywhere, deals are everywhere, and money isn't. But actually the opposite is true.
So tell me how your, money raising has changed, through this process. And eventually, or initially, you had that one guy that you ask him if he's interested, and he was, and that built some confidence. And you talk about how, those tables have turned, or how they, actually the opposite is true. And so tell me, how that transition was for you all, and what the capital raising process is like now.
So after we'd done it a couple times, then it's just a matter of, once you realize how abundant money is, then it's a matter of, you can start getting better and better terms, and your confidence level goes up. So you can, another important thing is you want to make sure to always have the person that is the potential lender tell you what a good return is for them. It may be lower than the highest amount you could possibly pay or are willing to pay, because everything is negotiable, right? So you might go into the conversation thinking, okay, I'm going to have to pay X amount of return. Well, you never know. I mean, the person's return expectations may be lower than that. So always, it's kind of like negotiating when you're buying a property. You want to hear their number first in case it's better than the one that you were going to say. So that's important, and really it's just about, doing what you said you're going to do. So if whatever terms are in place, they have to be super confident in your abilities to deliver that. And that only comes through building relationships, that know, like, and trust, right? So you have to just really work on the time building that rapport and just talking to them and really asking questions. And, whoever asks the questions is the one guiding the conversation. And the more interested you are in that person, the more likely they're going to want to work with you. And that goes for purchasing houses and doing deals, working with agents, lenders, everything, contractors. That's just universal.
So, how did you approach the question, or maybe you didn't get it, but, if an investor says, well, wait a minute, Josh, in this market, we were just talking a minute ago about how poor this market is, or nobody wants to invest there. Did investors question that?
Well, the other thing is you have to establish a track record and prove that you can execute, putting the money to work and doing deals, doing the active part of the real estate investing. So once we had a couple deals under our belt, that was fairly easy because we could just point to a bunch of properties that we had either flipped or bought as rentals and explain the numbers and give some case studies. Another major piece of this, and obviously you understand this, you have a podcast, is, a great way to build that trust and kind of get a head start on building that rapport is to be out there publicly in some manner. That's why we have a podcast. That's why we lead our local real estate investor meetups. A lot of that, being at the front of the room and having the podcast gives you some of that gravitas and a little bit of a head start on building that credibility. And I guess whoever has a microphone in front of them is an expert, right? So that does contribute, and it does build up, go a long way towards building that credibility, and then having deals under your belt that you can talk about openly and being transparent with the numbers, that really builds that confidence for your potential lenders.
Tell me about how the meetup, how long have you been doing the meetup, and tell me how it's structured?
Yeah, so we do, actually it's tonight, the first Monday of every month. I don't know when this airs, but we do on the first Monday of every month. We partnered up with real estate agents. We have a nice space, and it's a great benefit for them. They get a lot of buyer consults as agents. I mean, the main thing is, we just really have an attitude of abundance. We don't see other investors and agents and things as competition at all, because we've done so many deals with them now that with that networking piece we realize is so crucial. So we have a meeting. It's in the evenings, first Monday of every month, and we typically either have a topic that we'll present on, or we'll bring in some type of expert to speak on a topic. But even more important than that, and almost us, just kind of talking about a lot of the same things over and over, I don't feel is necessarily that valuable. But I guess it is, because you need to hear these things over and over until they sink in. And consistency and persistence is a huge piece of this. But even better than the content we provide, the networking piece, we make everyone stand up and talk about what they're looking for and what they have to offer. And then we encourage people to go around and pollinate, and just chat with everyone, network. And that has really been a huge benefit for the members of the group and for us as well.
How did you advertise your meetup locally?
We have it set up on Meetup. We don't have a RIA club here. I guess we're not big enough for a RIA chapter. So we just, actually it was already in existence, and the gentleman that was running it, we had started attending it regularly, and he just kind of asked us one day, he was going to be moving, and said, hey, do you guys want to take this over? You seem like you're pretty committed to the group. And that was another thing is too, is just showing up and being committed. I mean, that kind of raised our hands to the point where he thought we would be the natural people to take it over. So that was about, I don't know, a little over 2 years ago. And we do it religiously. Another thing we did too was it wasn't really consistent as far as the timing. And just like with podcasts, consistency is the key. So we had at the same location, same time every month so that we could slowly build that membership. And, even in a town of 150,000, 200,000 people for the entire market, we still get 50 or 60 people every month. So it's really been a good turnout. It's been growing steadily. So.
Any investors from the meetup?
Oh yeah. Yeah. We've wholesaled to people at the meetup. We've bought properties from people at the meetup. We've found contractors that way. We've found private lenders through the meetup. Any combination that you can think of has happened as a direct result of attending and leading the meetups.
Nice.
So I can't recommend that enough. If there isn't one in your market, start one. And if there is one, definitely attend it and try to participate actively and openly as much as you can.
I'm gonna say, even if there is one, there may be enough room for another one.
Yeah, exactly. There's plenty of markets big enough for a few meetups, I'm sure. And just carve out your niche and offer what you can and try not to be competitive. That's the thing, is we really are not competitive. We want everyone to benefit and participate as much as they can and get as much as they can out of the networking piece.
And you mean competitive within the group?
Yeah, well, within the group, and even if there was another meetup, like if someone else started another meetup, I would encourage it, and I would probably attend it and be a willing, student while I was there. I mean, I think how you approach those types of things, it's really that scarcity or abundance mentality. And if you approach everything with the abundance mentality, you're always going to benefit, 100-fold.
I agree. Appreciate you sharing that. And tell me how you're prepared for a downturn.
It's funny in the Midwest here, especially in Fargo, even back in the big crash, I think because lending practices are so conservative here, there really isn't a crash or even a downturn. It's almost more of rather than appreciating 4% a year, it might flatline or appreciate 1 or 2% a year. So I don't know that we're going to experience that here, but if we were, my argument would be that the only way that hurts us is if we're in the middle of a flip and the market nosedives during the time that we're doing a flip. Because honestly, if you own a rental property or any rental property, typically if people start losing their houses due to a drop in value, well, I would argue that rental demand is probably going to increase. So, if anything, your rental demand should go up. And unless you're trying to sell that property at that point, it almost doesn't matter what it's worth.
Right.
If you have financing in place or you own it with cash, and the value drops some, that shouldn't affect you too much. Also, if you're not over leveraged, you have to make sure you're leveraged to a point that works for your business and your market conditions. But I think up here in the upper Midwest, we're a little insulated. So,
so just a few questions, Josh, before we run out of time. And what is a way that you have recently improved your business that we could apply to ours?
We ingest a lot of mindset material. So I just read Rhinoceros Success, which is really just a forge ahead no matter what kind of crap comes your way kind of book.
What's the name of it?
Rhinoceros Success.
Nice.
Yeah, it's a red book. It's a real quick read, but basically the moral of it is just forge ahead no matter what happens. And, nothing's going to stop you, basically, whether it's writing offers or enduring hardships in the business. So really working on our mindset is a big piece. And then other than that, it's just always you always have to fill up that gas tank of, okay, am I going to be able to power through the tons of rejection that I'm going to encounter today? Because, it's a numbers game. Everything's a numbers game. So if you're getting one out of every 30 offers accepted, or if you're talking to 200 people before you might get an off-market deal, that means you're going to get told no, 199 times. So you have to constantly refuel that persistence and consistent tank to be able to forge ahead through that stuff. So we're on a constant diet of mindset material. And then other than that, just trying to fine tune and tweak and one thing that we're working on is, now that we've accumulated a decent sized portfolio, managing that, even though we have property management in place, still requires, they always say passive income. Well, nothing's ever truly passive. I just got 2 texts today from a property manager dealing with, repair type issues, and they have to bubble those up to us if they hit a certain, threshold of dollar amount or severity, so then there's always decisions to be made. So, trying to balance all that stuff is always a learning process.
Sure. So if you had to pick one thing, what would it be that's contributed to your success?
Mindset, I would say. And I don't even want to say it like it's courage or bravery or anything, but I would say almost naivete of just forging ahead regardless of what I thought the consequences were going to be, and taking action even if I thought, well, this is never going to work. Write the offer anyways. It's never going to work. We'll have the conversation anyways. Well, that property will never work as an investment. Well, how could it work? Just flipping that from here's why it won't work to how could it work? Just changing that question in my mind is probably the single biggest thing, at least that I've noticed, that I had sort of already built in versus some other new investors who don't seem to be able to get traction, is they talk themselves out of things or negotiate against themselves and don't take the action. They stop short.
Mindset is so important. I can't stress it enough. And I appreciate you elaborating on that, Josh, and even recommending that book that you're reading. I also was reading one recently called Extreme Ownership, and it was written by 2 Navy SEALs.
Yeah, is that Jocko?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I've heard some of his YouTube videos. That guy is pretty amazing. Yeah.
Yeah, it's I've gotten a little over halfway through, and I couldn't recommend it enough either. Just about mindset, but also just taking the extreme ownership of your position, where you're at, everything that happens. Not doing the blame game, and so.
Right.
But yeah, thank you for that. Tell us though, before we have to go, how you like to give back.
We try to, really, like, I look at the Meetup and the podcast as that, we're educating, the community. We try to do that. We also partner with, donate our time and money to a few local causes, that we don't really brag about too much, but we just kind of have some auto payments going out, and, and we donate our time at a bunch of things too. So, I don't know if you're speaking charitably or to the real estate community or
any way that you give back. It's up to you.
Sure. Yep. Yeah. So that's kind of how we do it. And we really try to, have you read The Go-Giver? Is that another?
I have.
Yeah. I just read that in the last 6 months too. So that was a great book as well. And, a lot of great lessons in there. And so now I just try to approach every interaction with, okay, how can I help this person out? And then, you just understand that on the back end, that may or may not benefit you, but that's one of the best ways to have things work out best for everyone, is to go into every interaction, every relationship with, how can I help this person out?
I love that mindset, Josh. Appreciate you stressing that, because it is so important. And it definitely is a game changer, when you can be more outwardly focused instead of so inwardly focused in how we can help others. So, but tell the listeners how they can get in touch with you.
Yeah, just go to housedudespodcast.com. That's probably the best way. And, there's or you just go to housedudes.com as well. That's our main website, House Dudes Podcast. Look us up on iTunes, all that stuff. And we love trying to grow our outreach, and just love hearing from people all over the country and different markets. And, I love chatting with people in different areas of the country and talking about what they're doing and just learning. I look at it as, we can learn from every investor out there. And I always come away with a tidbit or a trick or a tip or something that we can apply to our business too. So I try to get that out of all interactions.
Thank you for listening to the Real Estate Syndication Show, brought to you by Life Bridge Capital. Life Bridge Capital works with investors nationwide to invest in real estate, while also donating 50% of its profits to assist parents who are committing to adoption. Life Bridge Capital, making a difference, one investor and one child at a time. Connect online at www.lifebridgecapital.com for free material and videos to further your success.